So we've seen a significant spike in two different scams designed to separate you from your money, in particular over the course of the past year or so. On this program, we're going to tell you what they are and, more importantly, how to avoid them. So welcome on in to Dollars and Cents, where we help you make sense out of all of life's decisions involving your dollars. We're one of Central Florida's longest running radio programs, also recognized as a top 25 financial planning podcast by the folks at FeedSpot. Feel free to check out our website, Nelson Financial Planning, to learn more about what we do Monday through Friday, because after all, this is a Sunday program, and we welcome in our live audience on all those radio stations, along with our regular podcast listeners. If you're not connected to us on your favorite social media or podcast platform, well, go to our website once again, nelsonfinancialplanning.com. There you can find ways to get immediately connected. And of course, once there, make sure you subscribe. My name, of course, is Joel Garris, certified financial planner, certified financial fiduciary. Joining me on this week's program, fellow certified financial planner, certified financial fiduciary, and CPA. My goodness, an alphabet soup. Kristen Cayley, welcome to the program. Kristen Costello, excuse me. Old habits die hard. So how are you this morning?
I'm good, Joel. How are you?
I am fantastic. So, have you ever been scammed? Talking about scams, have you ever been a victim of a scam during the course of your lifetime?
I don't think so. Just, little small credit card charges. But my husband has. He got pretty scammed once.
What was all that about?
So he had a MacBook a couple years ago, and that was when there was the illusion that MacBooks and Apple products couldn't get viruses or they couldn't be hacked. And he got a pop-up from, it looked like an Apple sort of pop-up that said, your hardware has been hacked, call this 1-800 number. So he called it, and it was somebody that talked him through how to kind of clear his website history, all these normal steps that you would take on a computer. But then they asked for his credit card information. And that's when he realized, maybe I've been scammed. But it took him about 30 minutes to realize.
They are very good at what they do. I personally certainly have had the credit card charges happen to me. And I think probably the biggest one was, this was a few years ago, there's actually somebody in town trying to open up different loans at various banking institutions. So that wasn't fun at all. That caused me to put a fraud alert, and we're going to talk more about that, about what that is later in the program. But that caused me to put a fraud alert on my personal credit. Certainly, we've seen a big resurgence in scams of all varieties beyond, just kind of the main ones. But the ones that we're going to focus on today actually have to deal with these property scams where people are literally losing their houses out from underneath them. And then, of course, the IRS scams as well. So certainly something in your particular court, being a CPA. I wanted to also mention to our regular radio listeners, we did have some technical difficulties last week on the program. We believe that they are solved, so hopefully you're hearing us during our normal slot on Sunday mornings from either 9 to 10, or if you're over on the Space Coast, it's 11 to 12. Last week, those technical difficulties kind of threw some things off. So hopefully you're hearing us all well and good. I know that our regular listeners will certainly let me know if that is not the case. And it, of course, is Father's Day as well. So I guess I'll wish myself a happy Father's Day. Make sure you reach out to your dad and wish him a happy Father's Day as well.
Certainly will.
Are you guys planning anything at the Cayley Costello household to celebrate Father's Day, or?
Just a family dinner. Nothing too crazy.
Okay. All right. Very good. Did you get him something nice?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Can't ruin the surprise.
Okay. He will find out later on. So we hope you have a great Father's Day here this Sunday. The IRS scams, really, Kristen, we've seen just a massive uptick in that, ranging from impersonating an IRS agent to AI really sort of accelerating that. There's just unbelievable how many people fall prey to this, particularly when it comes to the IRS side of things.
Yeah. The IRS received over 300,000 complaints last year from ID theft. Also, there's been over 1 million flagged returns for possible fraud. So that's a lot.
That's a huge
uptick.
Number. Yeah. A million returns this year flagged for possible fraud. Yeah, that's a lot to kind of really chew through. That is for sure. And certainly we've seen plenty of these issues at the office as well that clients have brought to our attention.
Yeah. Some of the main causes for identity theft is people want to fraudulently file a return in your name to get a refund. They want to claim your dependent as their own dependent to get a refund, or they steal your identity for employment purposes. And that's what happened to one of our clients. Is somebody filed a 1099 and their social security number back in 2019. Or 2021, I'm sorry. And it was for a DoorDash food delivery service. He had never worked at DoorDash. He didn't know about this until 2023 when he received a bill from the IRS.
Wow. And that's the other tricky part of it is that, the IRS is so far behind and really hard to sort of figure out what's going on instantaneously when you're dealing with the IRS.
Right. Their audit process is pretty slow. So there is some lag there. So it really is important to kind of keep your identity protected.
So what we're going to do is talk about some of the ways in which you can kind of identify these scams should they kind of, appear on your front doorstep. And most importantly, steps to avoid that. So we're going to be talking at length about that as the program progresses. And then this other scam, the real estate scam, this one is literally ripped from the headlines and sort of underscores the spike in property scams. And Kristen, we were talking about this the other day. Obviously, you and I saw the headlines, but maybe our fellow listeners did not. Graceland, okay, Elvis's home was one of those properties that was under the guise of having to be sold as a result of fraudulent activity. Isn't that just amazing?
That's incredible.
It made national news. Because obviously it was Graceland. Everybody knows Elvis Presley's home. So they were trying to steal Elvis's home.
That's pretty crazy. That's insane.
It really, really is. It's you think about the king. Somebody trying to take his home. That's unbelievable. What's your favorite Elvis Presley song, Kristen?
I do like the song Hound Dog.
Okay, all right. Well, that's one of his more popular ones. I remember as a kid listening to Hound Dog. I had a record, which is, for those of you who don't know, records, those were those things that are like 12 inches in diameter, probably 15 inches in diameter. You used to put them on a record player. But it was Elvis's top 10 greatest hits, and of course Hound Dog was on there. So I remember listening to that regularly as a kid. But the background on this is just really, it literally ripped from the headlines, made for TV type of movie, where there was a fake company trying to auction off Graceland by claiming that Elvis's sole daughter, Lisa Marie, had signed a loan with this particular company and had used Graceland as the collateral for the loan, and because she had defaulted on the loan, now they were able to claim that Graceland was theirs.
It's really sophisticated.
Really? Well, yes. All fake documentation, all fraud, unbelievable. But there's something that you can do to really stay on top of that. There's no way to ever prevent somebody from filing a fake document, but there's something that you can do that allows you to get notification of any time something happens with your property. Isn't that right?
Yeah. I actually just signed up for it. It took 30 seconds. Very easy.
So this is some good stuff coming up on the program, because we're going to tell you what you need to do to sign up for this absolutely free service so that you're able to monitor your title so that no one comes and tries to steal it out from under you like they tried to do the king. Anyway, we're going to take a break and return after these messages here on Dollars and Cents with Joel Garrison, Kristen Costello of Nelson Financial Planning. So we get these calls all the time at the office from concerned clients who maybe got a call or an email from someone claiming to be the IRS and demanding money. And it really is tremendously on the rise, these IRS scams and impersonating IRS agents and use of AI to really perpetuate these scams. You know, before the break, Kristen, you mentioned a couple of interesting data points, if you will, of how many people get impacted by this.
Mm-hmm. Last year, the IRS heard of 300,000 identity theft complaints, and over 1 million returns have been flagged for fraud.
Unbelievable. In just one tax season. That really does help to kind of give you some perspective on how big of an issue is. So in this segment, we're going to get into the details on how you recognize and how you avoid becoming a victim to these scams. Both of us have 3 key takeaways that we're going to share with you as to how to make sure that you don't become a victim. So welcome on into the program. This, of course, is Dollars and Cents, where we help you make sense out of all of life's decisions involving your dollars. Central Florida's longest running radio program, also coming to you on a host of podcast platforms as well, where we are a top 25 financial planning podcasts. My name, of course, is Joel Garris, certified financial planner, certified financial fiduciary. With me on this week's program, one of the folks on the team at Nelson Financial Planning, who also happens to be a certified financial planner, certified financial fiduciary, and CPA, Kristen Costello. So what are some of the kind of the common scams that are out there that people at least need to be aware of, that, hey, these are the things that you might run into? What are some of the more common ones out there?
Yeah, I think the most common one is phone calls. I think all of us have received a fake phone call from somebody pretending to be an IRS agent, saying we have some unclaimed refund or saying that we owe some balance to the IRS. It sounds like a computer-generated voice. It's pretty obvious that it's not a real IRS agent. But with AI, it's really becoming more real. So it's getting scary. Also, you can receive mail saying that you have an unclaimed refund. They'll be requesting things like your driver's license or your bank information in order to get this unclaimed refund. And then similarly, you might receive something that says you have a tax rebate, and they'll ask for things like your driver's license in order to ensure that you get the correct amount back.
Here you are thinking, hey, I'm going to get money, and really they're just looking to get your information.
Mm-hmm. And they are targeting CPAs too, which is also scary. So what they want is their PTIN number, which is your preparer tax identification number. All CPAs or enrolled agents or preparers have one of these to file tax returns. So what they're trying to do is steal this number so that these fraudsters can file fake returns using your PTIN number. So kind of under the disguise of a reputable CPA.
Wow, that's a very new twist. And if I recall, during tax season, we saw a number of those kind of suspicious emails coming in to the office. People saying, "Oh, I can't. I don't have time to give you all my tax information, but if you can just file an extension, or let me give you just download this, download that." Those kinds of issues.
It's weird because the emails came out of the blue, and then if we responded, the email would bounce. It was not a real email address. So it's just weird that they're now starting to target CPAs, and it's getting scary, the amount that they're doing this.
Yeah, the targets are just unbelievable. The traditional scheme of where you're getting called by the IRS and saying, oh, you got to pay money, and someone's coming to arrest you. I mean, the reality is that, yeah, those are the normal scams, and certainly that's one of the primary ways in which to know that it is a scam, because the IRS is not going to call you. Mm-hmm. They're not going to just send you an email. They're not going to contact you through Facebook. Not going to show up at your door.
They won't text you.
And they certainly won't threaten to arrest you.
No.
That would be a lot of signs where you would say, wait a minute, this just does not make sense. as I've shared, as you know, Kristen, and I've certainly shared with the listing audience, I went through a personal IRS audit earlier this year, and yeah, they didn't just come out at my door. They didn't, just kind of randomly send me a text. It was a letter. That's really kind of that first method of correspondence is that letter, where you engage in a conversation with them. They take their position, you take your position, and then ultimately you arrive at but at no point did they say you must pay us or else kind of thing.
No, they want their money, so they'll work with you to get the money. They're not going to immediately arrest you. That's usually a sign that it's a scam.
Right. Right, and to the extent that you owe them, right, that you generally have a period of time in which to pay them. In settling my audit, I actually paid them relatively quickly, and wound up getting some interest back because of the fact that I had paid them more quickly than what they had originally expected. So, but yeah, we see that all the time. You were mentioning a story in the last segment about a client that had run into that issue involving a 1099 that really wasn't theirs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yep. So he received this, it's a bill from the IRS that said you owe this amount because you did not report this 1099 from DoorDash back in 2021. So he was confused, obviously, because he didn't work at DoorDash. So he called us, and we took a look at the notice and the letter, and we came to the conclusion that his identity was compromised. Somebody had somewhere along the line gotten his social security number, used it at DoorDash, who in turn issued him this 1099 that our client had no idea about. So the letter really did give him two options. It was agree and pay the bill, or respond to us and kind of tell us why you disagree and let us know the reasoning. So we responded with letting them know that his identity was compromised, his social security number was used fraudulently. There was a step that we had to take, a couple steps that we had to do. The first was we recommended he do a credit freeze, which kind of just shuts down his social security number for opening new accounts. We then had to file a affidavit with the IRS saying that his identity was compromised, and then we had to ask for an ID PIN, which is just a 6-digit number that the IRS is going to send you every year, and you cannot file your tax return without this number.
So there's definitely a process. If you find yourself in that as a victim here, there really is a established process for how you can really protect yourself and sort of get out from underneath these particular issues. I mean, there's a lot of key takeaways that that we would want to share with people. So I think you've got 3 and I've got 3. So what are the key takeaways to help people not become victim to these types of IRS scams?
Yeah, so my first one is create an account with the IRS. This does take a little bit of time, usually about 15 to 30 minutes, depending on what you need to do to open the account. But you can see all the official letters that the IRS sends you. So if you get something in the mail and you're not sure if it's real, create an account with the IRS. See if you see that same letter online to verify if it's a real letter from the IRS or not. And then just kind of in turn with that, make sure that your address is updated with the IRS. You can do this on your tax return, or you can mail them a form if you do move, because that's the way the IRS is going to contact you, is by mail. Next, make sure to file your return early. If you file it, that means nobody else can file one fraudulently for you.
Almost like a self-protection feature there. If I'm first in line, then no one else can come behind me.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And then my last one here is know that you have usually 30 days to respond to the IRS. They do not demand an immediate response. They're not going to arrest you right then and there. You do have some time to respond to them.
Yeah, so important to know that there's definitely a give and take that allows you to be able to, if you owe money, it might take you a few days to come up with it in the first place anyway. So they'll always give you some time. At no point are they going to demand. You must do this immediately. So those are some great takeaways. My takeaways would be, as with anything, you just have to be diligent. You just have to have your radar up constantly and be alert to the kinds of situations that could create or could lead into you being scammed. And I think the second key takeaway for me would be, and this has to deal with sort of human behavior and human reaction, is try not to react initially. I think there's a tendency for people to say, oh, I got a letter from the IRS. I need to deal with it. I need to deal with it right now. But they're kind of banking on that because they want you to start to roll down that process of really trying to resolve this and resolve it quickly, send them the check, send them the money. And then lastly, and I guess this would be the main key, make sure you're seeking help with that. If you get a letter from the IRS, take the time. Our office helps our clients out all the time with these kinds of letters. Make sure you're taking the time. Visit your tax preparer, your CPA, or whoever might help you with that, and really take the time to really figure out what's going on with this communication that you got from the IRS. With that, we're going to take a break here on Dollars and Cents with Joel Garris and Kristen Kelly. So this next segment, we literally ripped from the headlines. Did you see those articles out there? Graceland, Elvis's homeland, was almost auctioned off by scammers. So we're going to tell you what you need to be aware of and what you can do absolutely free to help protect yourself. So welcome on in to Dollars and Cents, where we help you make sense out of all of life's decisions involving your dollars. We're Central Florida's longest running radio program, also a top 25 financial planning podcast. Make sure you check us out on all those fabulous social media and podcast platforms. To learn more about us and what we do for our clients and our investment philosophy, feel free to check out our website, nelsonfinancialplanning.com. There you'll get to learn more about us, who we are, and how we do what we do. My name, of course, is Joel Garris, and with me this week on this week's episode of Dollars and Cents is Kristen Costello. Good morning again.
Good morning, Joel. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure, as always. And our job when we're not doing the radio program is to help you improve your life with a successful and cost-effective financial plan. So feel free to take us up on our free offer of a free, no-obligation consultation at any point in time. Again, just visit our website to find out more. So when we talk about these property scams, there's certain categories that are more susceptible to becoming a victim to these property scams, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the first one is deceased owners. So
Wait a minute. Elvis isn't dead, is he? Is that Elvis isn't dead, right? Okay.
He's alive in spirit.
He's alive in spirit. All right. So that's number one. All right. Yeah. What's number two?
Out-of-state owners.
Okay.
The next one is vacant plots of land.
Right.
Investment properties owned by an LLC, and homes with just a lot of equity in them. Those are the main targets.
Yeah. So if you find that you have a property or maybe you know someone in the family that has that type of property, you really need to be a little bit more aware of what's going on, because those are the categories where they would look to potentially take advantage of scamming that property. And there's sort of two forms that scam takes. First is literally trying to assume your identity and sell the property to an unsuspecting buyer. That's the first version of it. And then the second version is where basically they take a loan against the property, go through the process of submitting an application to a lender, to a borrower, and ultimately steal the equity that way. So what's behind sort of the rise? We seem to be hearing more and more about this. Obviously, the story about Graceland that captured national attention of late. What explains kind of the rise behind this particular scam, Kristen?
Yeah, I think one of the main reasons is the popularity of remote closings, where nobody's actually in person looking at the house. Also, you can do notarization digitally now, so you don't even need to be on site to do certain transactions like that anymore.
So the physical presence of the notary, where they put the stamp, all of that is digitized now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, many houses in Florida were sold like that. It's crazy. And then also the rising equity in homes. There's a record $16.9 trillion in the first quarter of 2024 of equity in homes.
So no surprise, there's an increase in scams because, well, that's where the money is, right?
Right. You can unlock that equity with the sale of the house, a cash out, or refinance, those sorts of things.
And I think that's the highest amount of household real estate equity ever that was recorded here in the first quarter of 2024.
Right.
So some pretty big numbers on that. Now, I guess the good news, to the extent that there is that, look, if it's a false deed or a fraudulent loan, then false deed isn't going to transfer title. A fraudulent loan isn't going to make you, as an innocent homeowner, legally responsible. But, and here's the big but, it is a costly and lengthy process to unwind this when it happens, because there's no real way to sort of prevent someone. I mean, if you're going to perpetuate a fraud, then there's no real way that someone's going to just basically lie, cheat, and steal and make up a document, or in the case of Graceland, make up a company that makes up a loan, that makes up a story about how it is now defaulted. So certainly the bad news in all this is that it is costly and lengthy to process to unwind. To the extent you want to actually do a real loan, right, then it's going to push back that process to kind of actually get a real loan on it, because there's a fake loan sitting on it, and then certainly that makes also the property harder to sell, right, from a title insurance perspective. So there's some things to really kind of be aware of on this, isn't there?
Yeah. So kind of just watch out for random credit inquiries. So if you check your credit score, just make sure that there's no accounts opened that you're not aware of. Just kind of take a look at that from time to time and just monitor it. Also, just watch out for any bills that you might receive in the mail that don't look right, that have your name on them, have your address, but maybe not something you're familiar with. And then also, this is the option that I did. It's free through your county. So I just went on to orangecounty.com, went to the comptroller's website, and there's a property fraud alert sign up. It's absolutely free. It took 30 seconds. You input your name, you put your email address or your contact information about how you want to be notified, and they'll let you know if there's any property scams going on with your name or your information.
So just to recap for our listeners, so that is an absolutely free service. I'm pretty sure because you have to go to the county registry of deeds, county property appraiser's office?
It was on the comptroller's website.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you go to the comptroller's website. I think pretty much every county in Florida has that, because I've done that for properties in Orange County and Volusia County, and I think throughout all of Florida they offer that. And you're right. It's a very quick process of registering and putting in an email, and ultimately it then sends out automatic alerts, automatic notifications about when anything has changed, any filing that has happened on
right.
that.
Yes, and it took 30 seconds. It was very easy.
Yeah, just got to find the property that you own, and then go ahead and connect that into the registration. So certainly a very easy process. And what's interesting is there's a lot of services that you can pay for to do that, but there's really no reason to pay to do that. The reality is that you can go on and do this absolutely free of charge.
Yep, highly recommend it. Very easy.
Certainly easy to do. I know I've done that for a number of different properties, and it's funny, you know, when you get the notice, it certainly definitely draws your attention, because what's interesting is when you look at these property websites where you can sign up for this service, even they acknowledge that there's no way for the Registry of Deeds, the property appraiser's office, to recognize that a document is fraudulent or not, right? Because if it's a fraudulent document, chances are it's pretty good in terms of what it looks like.
Yeah, especially with AI now involved, these documents can look very real.
So there's no way for them to sort of prevent that. And I think that's the key thing, and why it's so important to make sure that you're monitoring, to be alert to those signs, as you were saying earlier, about if someone really is trying to steal your identity. I mean, that's where it first starts, is someone is trying to assume that they are you, to give them the ability to sell the house or maybe get a loan on it. And ultimately to use these services to get notified, because you can't prevent it, but at least you can make sure that you're getting notified as quickly as possible, because then that reduces down the time and the effort needed to sort of unwind the transaction.
Right. And if we go back to the types of properties they're targeting, it's properties where it's deceased owners, out-of-state owners, vacant plots of land. So they're kind of looking for people not to pay attention.
Right. Right, that's the thing, is because if you file a fraudulent deed and a lot of time goes by, then that gives them an opportunity to maybe try and sell the property, gives them an opportunity to go through the process of trying to get a loan against the property. I mean, that's what they're hoping for, is that you're not paying attention.
Right.
Which is why it's so important for people to sign up for that absolutely free service. Look, go to your comptroller, the comptroller site for your particular county. And make sure you register so you can get notified of whenever anything gets filed against your property. With that, we're going to take a break here on Dollars and Cents. This is Joel Garris with Kristen Cayley of Nelson Financial Planning. We'll continue this week's episode of Dollars and Cents after these messages. So with the heat of summer, so too is the heat rising from scams that we are seeing increasing on a regular basis. On the program so far, Kristen, we've talked about, I guess, two of the bigger ones, right? The IRS and the property scam, and that one in particular generating a lot of headlines of late as a result of the fraudulent attempt or the attempt to fraudulently sell Elvis's home, Graceland. My goodness, what an unbelievable turn of events. So we're going to kind of recap some of the key takeaways that we've got for folks here on the program. So welcome back to Dollars and Cents, where we help you make sense out of all of life's decisions involving your dollars. One of Central Florida's longest running radio programs, also a top 25 financial planning podcast. Make sure you check out our website, nelsonfinancialplanning.com, to learn more about us or how you can get connected to our various social media and podcast platforms. My name, of course, is Joel Garris, certified financial planner, certified financial fiduciary. And with me this week, Kristen Cayley, also a certified financial planner and a certified financial fiduciary, along with a CPA. So certainly these scams involving the IRS have been around a long time, haven't they?
Yeah, especially the phone calls. I think we've been receiving those for years.
Yeah, where they call and they say, hey, you need to pay us money right now or the sheriff's going to come a-knocking.
Yeah, or they could be saying, hey, you're due a refund. Give me all of your banking information, sensitive information like that.
Those are certainly some staggering numbers that we've been talking about on the program. 300,000 complaints in a year, 1 million returns that the IRS has sort of marked for potentially fraud. And couple that with just the realities of the IRS, right? Hard to speak to anybody, quite far behind they are in terms of processing. And that's the part of the real issue, is just the length of time it takes them to kind of undo these types of scams that can happen to somebody.
Yeah, their audit process it's a lengthy process. It's not immediate. So in the case of our client, it took nearly 2 years for the IRS to notify them that this tax form wasn't on their tax return and for them to realize that the Social Security number was compromised.
Talk about really just hitting somebody. I mean, as it is, the IRS obviously creates, every time you get a letter from the IRS, it creates an emotional reaction, and unfortunately, it's not something that's going to get resolved instantaneously. So you got to be diligent, and you got to sort of work through these issues, and know kind of those warning signs, right, of what is a scam and how to be alert to it.
Yeah, so if you receive a call from somebody claiming to be the IRS or an email, it is likely not the IRS. They will not call and they will not email you. The only way that the IRS will contact you is by mail. So make sure you have your address updated with the IRS, because that is the only way that they will contact you. Anybody that demands immediate payment or threats you with arrest is likely also not the IRS, because they do give you some time to make your payments, and they will not just arrest you on the spot. There's a lengthy process where you can go to court and you can kind of defend your position before any sort of jail would ever happen.
Right, that's exactly right. And I guess that's part. And you had 3 kind of key takeaways that you shared earlier in the program. So what are those 3 key takeaways for folks to really avoid these getting scammed by some of these IRS frauds that are out there?
My first one is create an account with the IRS. This does take a little bit of time. You have to input your driver's license or some sort of identification so that they can verify that it is you. But once you do have an account, you can check things like your balance due. So if they do say you owe them money, you can go on the website and verify if you actually do owe them any money. You can verify what letters they have sent you because they'll keep a copy of them within that IRS account. My next one is that you don't react initially. You usually have some time before the IRS expects you to respond. Usually that's about 30 days. So they're not going to demand immediate payment. They're not going to demand an immediate response. They'll give you some time to come up with a response or come up with a payment for them.
See, I think that's a really important one that people forget because, again, you get into that mode of, oh, it's the IRS and I want to deal with it and move quickly. Look, the IRS gives you 30 days to respond, okay? So they send a letter, you get 30 days to respond. They're going to take a long time before they respond back as well. They don't have that same 30-day rule. So this can be a long and stressful process. But it contrasts that with somebody who's like, okay, we got to deal with this today, and you need to send this money, or else someone's going to come knocking at your door.
Mm-hmm. No, that is a sign that it's a scammer.
Yeah.
And then my last one is file your return early so that nobody else can file a fraudulent one for you.
No, that's good advice. First in the line makes you a little bit stronger in terms of your position to be able to have that and avoid scammers trying to file a return that's not really you.
Right.
That is for sure, and a lot of it, is to be diligent and to not react initially. But my third takeaway is really this notion of making sure that you're seeking help. Take the time to go talk to somebody and share that letter with the IRS. Don't ignore it. You really need to sit down with a professional, whether that's your tax preparer, your CPA, or even your finance person. They should be able to help explain to you what it is that they are saying in the letter. Oftentimes, more often than not, we see these letters, and there's usually a relatively simple and straightforward explanation behind them when folks are getting these legitimate letters from the IRS.
Yes. The only problem is they are lengthy. They're usually 4 or 5 pages, and it just takes a little bit of time to read through them, but there usually is a legitimate reason that they're sending it to you, and either if you read it closely or if you could pass it along to your CPA, they can help you figure out what it actually is saying.
Yeah, because a lot of those letters are computer generated, right? So what's happening is that they're just taking and matching up different tax information that they received versus what was on your return. And if something doesn't show, then that's going to automatically generate out a letter in today's world.
Yes, that's correct. And that's what happened with our clients is there was a 1099 that wasn't on their tax return, so it automatically generated out this letter to them.
Yeah. So make sure you take the time to really seek some help, seek some guidance on that. I know, on any given point, I mean, it seems like we always run into 5 or 6 of those every year, it seems like. So one every couple of months or so. Some of that could be that the IRS is stepping up enforcement as well. So might be seeing more of those, but important to take the time and figure it out. And then similarly on the property scam side of things, that's a huge, definitely on the rise of late.
Yes, and like we said earlier, it's probably because there's so much equity in homes nowadays. Record highs, 19.6 trillion. It's makes homes a perfect target for these scammers.
So you got to be diligent on that one as well in order to not run into issues. I think you mentioned, Kristen, doing some kind of a fraud alert or credit freeze. Fraud alert, a little bit different than a credit freeze. Fraud alert, you have to kind of renew that one. The credit freeze kind of locks down really any ability to kind of borrow money. So you want to think about the differences between those two. And then most important, can't emphasize this enough, that free service that you signed up for, and I signed up for as well.
Yeah, so just kind of poke around on your county website, see where their property fraud alerts are, and sign up for the free service.
And that will send you notification anytime something gets filed with respect to any property that you own. Because again, no way to ever prevent fraud, but the best recourse is to know that it is happening and be able to respond as quickly as possible when that in fact happens. So that's a very valuable service available throughout Florida, and most places throughout the country now will offer that as well.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I believe so.
So make sure you're signing up for that free service, courtesy of your local government website, where you're going to be able to get notified of that. So hopefully folks walk away from this week's program with a little bit more appreciation of how to protect themselves.
Yeah, I hope so, because scams are on the rise.
Scams are on the rise as well, and that's what that's our role here, is to help give perspective and advice on the issues of today. Certainly, these are some issues that are hitting the news front and center. If you have any questions or would like to engage in a free conversation, visit our website, nelsonfinancialplanning.com. We don't have any account minimums. Our role is to help you achieve financial success. So we don't charge for any of those conversations as well. That is obviously what being a fiduciary is all about, is to help you. So make sure you check out our website, Nelson Financial Planning, to schedule that absolutely free conversation. With that, we'll wrap it on up and get on out of here. Thanks for listening to Dollars and Cents. Have a great Father's Day. And with that, this has been Joel Garris and Kristen Costello of Nelson Financial Planning.